Let me tell you about Emily. Not the first one, we'll get to her later. This is about the second Emily, though she didn't know she was second when this story began. She was just Emily, 26 years old, living in a downtown apartment with the man she planned to marry. For 2 beautiful years, everything felt destined. Caleb remembered her coffee order, left encouraging notes in her purse, held her through sad movies. When he proposed on that sunset beach in California, getting down on one knee as waves crashed behind them, it felt like the universe had orchestrated their love story. "Emily," he whispered, voice shaking, "you are my everything. Will you marry me?" She said yes before he finished asking. The ring was perfect, a simple solitaire that caught the light like captured starfire. But perfect makes you careless. It makes you trust without question. It blinds you to the cracks forming beneath the surface. That Tuesday evening in October started like any other. Emily came home with wedding magazines and fabric samples, humming as she climbed the stairs. Caleb was working late again, saving money for their honeymoon. She admired his dedication. Around 10 o'clock, she went to the bedroom for her phone charger. That's when she noticed Caleb's dresser drawer was slightly open, unusual for a man who was meticulous about organization. Something made her push the drawer closed. As she did, she glimpsed the corner of a photograph beneath some papers. Not just any photograph, one showing 2 people embracing. With trembling hands, she pulled the drawer open wider. It was Caleb, looking younger but unmistakably him, kissing a woman with long brown hair. The woman was beautiful, radiant, laughing, alive with happiness. And she looked exactly like Emily. Not similar, not reminiscent, exactly. The same oval face, brown eyes, smile lines, even her hair fell in the same waves. Looking at this photograph was like looking into a mirror of a moment she'd never lived. Emily's hands shook as she turned the picture over. Written in Caleb's careful handwriting were 2 words that sent ice through her veins. My Emily. But she was his Emily, wasn't she? The photograph slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. In that moment, standing in the bedroom she shared with the man she planned to marry, Emily realized she might not know him at all. What she didn't know was that this moment would change everything. Emily didn't sleep that night. When Caleb came home after midnight, she pretended to sleep, listening to him move quietly through their apartment. His kiss on her forehead felt different now. The next morning, Emily called in sick to work. She became a detective in her own life, searching for clues about the woman who shared her face. She started with Caleb's computer, using passwords he'd never hidden, but she found nothing, no trace of another Emily, no old relationships. It was as if his life had begun the day they met. Then Emily remembered the storage box on the top shelf of their closet. Standing on a chair, she pulled down the heavy cardboard box and carried it to their bed. Inside, college diplomas, old tax returns, his grandfather's watch, and at the bottom, a manila envelope she'd never seen before. The envelope was thick, stuffed with something that crinkled. With trembling fingers, Emily opened it and spilled the contents onto their comforter. More photographs, dozens of them. Caleb and the other Emily at a carnival sharing cotton candy, at a Christmas market bundled in winter coats, in formal wear at what looked like a wedding, dancing with pure joy. In every single photograph, they looked completely, utterly in love. And in every single photograph, Emily was looking at her own face, living a life she'd never lived. The dates on the back ranged from 5 to 7 years ago. This wasn't casual, this was serious, long-term, deep. At the bottom of the envelope was a small white card. Emily Rose Fletcher, 1995 to 2019, beloved daughter, friend, and soulmate. Gone too soon, but never forgotten. A memorial card. The other Emily, Emily Rose Fletcher, was dead. The realization hit like a physical blow. She wasn't Caleb's first love. She wasn't even his second chance at love. She was his attempt to resurrect someone he'd lost. Emily picked up one photograph, Caleb and Emily Rose at a beach that looked suspiciously familiar, the same beach where he'd proposed to her. Emily Rose was wearing a sundress Emily had admired just last week. For the first time in her life, Emily was looking at someone who was truly her mirror image, and it terrified her. Emily spent the entire day in a daze, photographs spread across their bed like evidence at a crime scene. When Caleb came home that evening, he found her sitting on the floor beside their bed, still in pajamas, holding the memorial card. "Emily?" His voice was soft, confused. "What are you?" Then his eyes fell on the photographs and his face went completely white. Oh, God. They stared at each other across the wreckage of secrets finally exposed. "How long have you known?" he whispered, sinking onto the bed's edge. "Since last night," Emily said, surprised by her steady voice. "I found the first photograph by accident, but then I couldn't stop looking." Caleb buried his face in his hands. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for you to find out like this." "But you never meant for me to find out at all, did you?" The words came out sharper than intended. "Were you ever going to tell me?" "I don't know. I told myself I would, someday, but the longer we were together, the harder it became. How do you tell someone you love that they look exactly like someone you lost? You start with the truth. You don't build a relationship on lies. When I first saw you at the coffee shop, I thought I was hallucinating," Caleb said, voice breaking. "You were reading the same book she used to love, ordering the same drink. You even laughed the same way." Emily remembered that day. She'd been reading The Time Traveler's Wife, waiting for her latte. A handsome man had struck up a conversation, and they'd talked for an hour. It had felt like fate. Maybe it was fate, but not the kind she'd believed in. "Tell me about her," Emily said quietly. Caleb's face crumbled. "We were together for 3 years, met in college. She was studying literature, I was studying architecture. She was brilliant, funny, kind. She had this way of seeing beauty in everything." He picked up a photograph of them dancing. This was at her sister's wedding. 2 weeks later, she was gone. "How?" "Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. She died instantly. I was supposed to be with her that night, but I was working late. If it'd gone with her..." "Don't torture yourself with what-ifs," Emily said automatically, then realized with horror that she was comforting him exactly the way Emily Rose probably would have. "After she died, I was destroyed. I took leave from work, went to grief counseling, but everywhere I looked, I saw her. So I moved here. Fresh start. And then you saw me. And then I saw you." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Emily, I swear I didn't plan it. I convinced myself it was just resemblance, coincidence." "But it wasn't just physical, was it?" Emily asked, thinking of all their shared preferences, all the moments when Caleb had looked at her with such knowing recognition. "We liked the same things she liked." "Some of them," he admitted. "But I fell in love with you, not just your resemblance to her. You're different, you're stronger, more independent. You challenge me in ways she never did." "Stop." Emily held up her hand. "Do you hear yourself? You're comparing us like products on a shelf." "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it?" Emily stood up. "Tell me honestly, Caleb, if I looked completely different, would you have ever approached me? Would you have fallen in love with me?" The silence that followed was the loudest sound in the room. "I don't know," he whispered finally. "I honestly don't know." There it was, the truth that shattered what remained of Emily's heart. "I can't do this," Emily said quietly. "I can't marry you wondering if you're seeing her every time you look at me. I can't live my life as someone else's ghost." Emily went to stay with her sister Grace, who lived in a small house across town with wind chimes on the front porch and herbs growing in mason jar gardens. Grace took one look at Emily's face and pulled her into the warmest hug she'd felt in days. Emily told her everything. Grace listened without judgment, occasionally squeezing Emily's hand when her voice broke. For 3 days, Emily stayed in Grace's spare room, trying to piece together her fractured identity. She ignored voicemails from her boss and increasingly desperate texts from Caleb. On the 4th day, Grace suggested Emily might need to face the situation instead of hiding from it. Maybe you need to learn more about Emily Rose. Maybe understanding her will help you understand yourself. That afternoon, Emily drove back to the apartment while Caleb was at work. On the nightstand was a key she didn't recognize, along with a note. "Storage Unit 247 on Oak Street. If you need to know everything, it's all there. I should have shown you years ago. See." Storage Unit 247 was filled with boxes labeled in Emily Rose's neat cursive. Books, clothes, journals, letters. Emily started with the letters. Inside were hundreds of pieces of correspondence, letters from friends, family, and most devastatingly, love letters from Caleb. My dearest Emily Rose, I miss you every second you're away. The apartment feels empty without your laugh. I find myself saving up little stories just to tell them to you when you call tonight. But as Emily continued reading, something strange happened. The letters from Emily Rose to Caleb started to sound familiar. Caleb, I woke up thinking about our conversation last night, about whether soulmates are real or just something we tell ourselves to feel less alone. I think I believe in them now. Emily dropped the letter. She'd had that exact conversation with Caleb 6 months ago. Word for word, thought for thought. Her heart pounding, she dug deeper. Sometimes I worry that I love you more than you love me, and then I remember that love isn't a competition. I had the strangest dream that we were old together, sitting on a porch swing watching our grandchildren play. Each letter felt like reading her own diary written in someone else's handwriting. At the bottom of the box was Emily Rose's leather-bound journal. Emily opened it to a random page. June 15th, Caleb proposed today. I said yes, but now I'm wondering if I'm good enough for this happiness. He's so perfect, and I keep waiting for him to realize he could do better. Emily dropped the journal as if it had burned her. Those weren't just Emily Rose's thoughts. They were exactly the thoughts she'd had when Caleb proposed to her. She stumbled out of the storage unit and sat in her car hyperventilating. How was it possible? How could two different people think the same thoughts, feel the same feelings, love the same man in exactly the same way? Unless they weren't different people at all. Let me tell you what it's like to discover you might not be real. It's like looking in a mirror and seeing someone else's reflection looking back. Emily drove back to Grace's house in complete psychological disarray. The similarities between her and Emily Rose weren't just coincidental. They were precise, detailed, impossible. This is strange, Grace admitted after reading the letters. But people can have similar thoughts, similar ways of expressing themselves. It's not just similarity, Emily insisted, pacing like a caged animal. It's identical. I had the exact same dream she wrote about. How do two different people have the same dream? That night, Emily barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Emily Rose's handwriting, her words, her thoughts, that were somehow also Emily's thoughts. She found herself questioning everything, her memories, her personality, her very existence. Had she always loved romantic comedies, or had she learned to because Caleb expected her to? Did she really prefer coffee with cream and sugar, or was she unconsciously mimicking a dead woman's preferences? When she laughed, was it her laugh or Emily Rose's echoing through her? By morning, she was a wreck. Grace found her staring blankly at untouched coffee. "What if I'm not real?" Emily whispered. "What if I'm just her ghost walking around thinking I'm alive?" "Emily, listen to me." Grace took her hands firmly. "You are real. You exist. You have your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own life." But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was living someone else's life, wearing someone else's skin. On her 6th day at Grace's house, Emily called Caleb. "Emily," he breathed into the phone, relief evident. "Thank God. Are you okay?" "I found them," she said without preamble. "The letters, the journal, everything." Silence. Then, "Emily, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain how I have the same thoughts as her, the same dreams? This isn't just about looking alike anymore. This is about you finding someone who could be her replacement in every possible way." "That's not what happened." "Then what did happen?" Emily's voice cracked. "When you saw me that first day, did you approach me because you were attracted to me as a person, or because I looked like Emily Rose?" The pause was too long. "Both," he admitted finally. "I was drawn to you because you reminded me of her, but I fell in love with you because of who you are." "That's not good enough," Emily said quietly. "That's not love. That's desperation wearing a disguise." She hung up before he could respond. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from someone you love when you realize they don't actually love you. They love the idea of you, the memory you represent, the ghost you're helping them keep alive. It took Emily 2 more weeks to find that courage. During those weeks at Grace's house, something began to shift. Slowly, carefully, Emily started to separate her own identity from Emily Rose's shadow. She made a list of things she remembered loving before she met Caleb. She loved thunderstorms and the smell of rain on hot pavement. She loved terrible reality TV shows. She had strong opinions about pineapple on pizza, against, and preferred beaches to mountains. She was afraid of spiders but loved snakes. These were her quirks, her preferences, her authentic self. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning when Emily was helping Grace plant flowers. As she dug her hands into the rich, dark soil, feeling the earth beneath her fingernails, she had a sudden realization. Emily Rose Fletcher would have hated gardening. Emily knew this with absolute certainty. Emily Rose was romantic, dreamy, delicate in a way that Emily herself had never been. But Emily loved getting dirty, building things with her hands, solving practical problems. She'd been suppressing these parts of herself for years. "I need to go home," Emily announced, standing and brushing soil from her hands. "Not to Caleb, to my apartment. I need to pack my things." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to choose myself, maybe for the first time in my life." That afternoon, Emily drove to the apartment she'd shared with Caleb. She'd called ahead to make sure he wouldn't be there. The wedding magazines were gone from the coffee table and their photos had been turned face down. On the kitchen counter was a letter. "My dearest Emily, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I need you to understand, I didn't fall in love with you because you looked like her. I fell in love with you because you made me believe in love again. Yes, I was drawn to you initially because of the resemblance, but staying with you, building a life with you, that was about who you are, not who you reminded me of. You are stronger than she ever was. You challenge me to be better. You make me laugh in ways she never did. You are not her replacement. You are your own irreplaceable person. She was my first love, my young love, my tragic love. You were my mature love, my chosen love, my forever love. I hope you find someone who sees you clearly from the very beginning. You deserve that kind of pure, uncomplicated love. All my love, Caleb." Emily read the letter twice, tears streaming down her face. Part of her wanted to forgive him, to try to make it work despite everything. But love wasn't enough. Not when it was built on secrets and substitution. She packed her belongings methodically, taking only what was truly hers. The wedding dress stayed in the closet. The engagement ring went on the kitchen counter next to Caleb's letter. As she packed, she found her journal from before she met Caleb, filled with thoughts and dreams that were nothing like Emily Rose's. Photos from college showing her playing softball, covered in mud and grinning, so different from the delicate image she'd cultivated for Caleb. She was not Emily Rose Fletcher's ghost. She was Emily, no qualifiers required, and she was enough exactly as she was. Emily left the kitchen key on the kitchen counter and drove away without looking back. 3 months later, Emily was living in a small apartment across town, working at a nonprofit that helped build community gardens. It was dirty work, practical work that let her use her hands and see tangible results. It felt authentically hers. She'd cut her hair shorter and stopped wearing the soft, romantic dresses that had filled her closet when she lived with Caleb. Instead, she wore jeans and work boots and t-shirts she didn't mind getting stained. She looked different now, stronger, more grounded, more like herself. Emily had started seeing a therapist, Dr. Lisa Nash, who helped her untangle the complex emotions around identity and love. "You're not responsible for healing someone else's grief," Dr. Nash had told her. "And you're not required to be grateful for love that comes with conditions." Those words have been a revelation. Emily has spent so much time feeling guilty for walking away, as if she should have been grateful that anyone loved her at all. Dr. Nash helped her understand that she had the right to be loved clearly, completely, for exactly who she was. One evening in late spring, Emily came home to find an envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a photograph showing Caleb at what looked like a cemetery, kneeling beside a headstone with fresh flowers. On the back, he'd written, "Finally said goodbye properly, C." The letter was brief. "Dear Emily, I hope you're well. I wanted you to know that I've been in therapy, working through my grief and the mistakes I made with you. I never properly grieved Emily Rose's death because I was afraid of letting her go. When I found you, I thought the universe was giving me a second chance to love her better. I was wrong. You were right to leave. You deserved honesty from the beginning, and you deserve to be loved as yourself, not as a reflection of someone else. I visited Emily Rose's grave last week for the first time since her funeral. I brought her favorite flowers and told her about you, about how much I'd hurt someone wonderful because I couldn't let her go. You were not my second Emily. You were my first and only you. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize that the honor of loving you should have been enough. I hope someone loves you the way you deserve to be loved, completely, clearly, without reservation or comparison. With respect and gratitude, Caleb. Emily read the letter 3 times, sitting on her couch as the sun set. She felt a complex mixture of sadness, relief, and something that might have been forgiveness beginning to bloom in her chest. It didn't change what had happened between them, but it gave their story a kind of closure that felt healing rather than bitter. That weekend, Emily did something she'd been avoiding. She wrote her own letter to Emily Rose Fletcher telling her she was sorry for what had happened to her, sorry she had inadvertently become part of her story, and that she hoped Emily Rose could rest peacefully knowing Caleb had finally said goodbye properly. She drove to Riverside Cemetery and read the letter aloud at Emily Rose's grave, then buried it in the soft earth beside the headstone. "I hope you understand," she whispered. "I hope you're at peace." As Emily walked back to her car, the weight she'd been carrying for months finally began to lift. She was real. She was Emily. Not the first, not the second, just Emily. She was someone who deserved to be loved clearly and completely, without shadows or substitutions. And someday, she believed she would be. 2 years later, Emily stood in her backyard garden planting the season's vegetables. Her engagement ring, a simple band Jake had chosen specifically for her, caught the afternoon sunlight as she worked. Jake was inside making dinner, humming off-key. Through the kitchen window, she could see him moving around their cozy house, occasionally glancing out to smile at her. There were no shadows in his smiles. When Jake looked at Emily, he saw only her. Their love story had been beautifully ordinary. Jake had simply seen Emily at the community garden one Saturday morning, been charmed by her laugh and impressed by her knowledge of heirloom tomatoes, and asked her if she'd like to have coffee sometime. From their first date, everything had been clear and honest. Jake knew about her past with Caleb. She told him early on, wanting no secrets between them. He listened with compassion, then assured her that he was interested in building something new with her, not repairing something broken from her past. Their relationship had grown slowly, steadily, like the vegetables Emily tended so carefully. No dramatic highs or devastating lows, just consistent care and attention that allowed love to flourish naturally. As Emily finished her planting, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The pain of discovering she'd been loved as a substitute had been devastating, but it had also been necessary. It had forced her to examine what she truly wanted from love and what she deserved. She learned that love without clarity was not really love at all. It was confusion wearing a romantic disguise. She learned that being someone's second choice, even when the first choice was lost to tragedy, was still being second. She learned that she had the right to walk away from love that came with too many conditions. Most importantly, she learned that she was enough exactly as she was, not because she resembled someone else, not because she could help someone process their grief, but because she was Emily, unique, irreplaceable, worthy of being someone's clear, uncomplicated first choice. As she walked toward the house where Jake was cooking dinner and humming off-key, she smiled. This was what love was supposed to look like. Simple, honest, directed at the right person for all the right reasons. She was no longer anyone's echo or anyone's second Emily. She was simply, completely, perfectly herself. And that was more than enough. That was everything.